This up here should be a surprise to anyone. You know, Tuesday, Heart of Darkness, chapters 1 and 2. So if you haven't started that, start. Be a good idea. I highly recommend. There you go. So parts 1 and 2, again, it's going to take you to page 128. If you get stuck, no, I won't come over and read bedtime stories to you or anything like that. I did send out to you last night, for those of you who never mind, I did send out a link to an audio copy, and YouTube certainly has some audio copies. Sometimes listening and reading might work out. I don't think solely listening is going to be too helpful, especially when we're talking about rhetorical devices and things of that nature. You don't really maybe hear them quite as much, but I think maybe having a voice going along with you could be helpful at times. So if that's something you want to use, by all means, go ahead and go for it. So Tuesday and Wednesday, we'll go over that stuff with chapters 1 and 2. Questions that you have, come in, ask. We generally discuss it, with the book and try to get clarification, maybe some ideas as to things that are going on. Next Friday is prompt number 2. We'll do the check-in, the rough draft, just like we did on Wednesday of this week. So we'll do 2 more peer edits. Yesterday we went over details with prompt number 2. Anybody think of any questions after you left the room, prompt related or anything with it that we need to go over? Okay. Discovered I'm really effective and efficient because no one ever asks me questions. That means we take care of everything in class. Pardon? Could be.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're timid, have someone who can contribute to every conversation.
Is that like talking?
No.
Enjoys hearing his voice.
I was going to say, what you said that makes sense.
Yesterday you received this sheet, which is what we're going to be taking a look at, although you can't see it yet. That one. So the paragraph sheet. So there's sample paragraphs on the front, which are all introductory paragraphs, and then there's a body paragraph on the back. The body paragraph is not for the grapes of wrath, but it's still something that we're going to take a look at, and I'll explain why when we get there. The 3 paragraphs on the front are all introductions, and if anyone doesn't have their sheet, there are extras over there between Megan and Dylan back there. All 3 paragraphs are introductions. All 3 were for the grapes of wrath prompts. And all 3 were submitted as final copy, so it's not like it's a rough draft. They're from years past, so it's not that one. You can ask and ask and ask, and I won't tell you because, to be honest, I forget. So, I don't know. Which means we can be brutally honest because we have no idea. And now keep in mind, all we have though is an introduction. So we're not going over the whole body paragraphs and whatnot. And sometimes introductions can be a pain, and then you figure it out, and the body paragraphs go really well. And you can also have the opposite effect where that is a great introduction. What the heck happened when you hit body paragraph number 1? So it's certainly not a determiner as to the direction of the essay, but I think it gives us enough things that can be useful for you while you're working on your introduction to make sure you get the necessary components, dot the I's, cross the T's, and you're kind of conveying the message that you want. So I'm going to give you like a minute, 2 minutes. Just read number 1, only number 1, and we're just going to look. What do you notice about it? What jumps out to you? Could be strengths, could be weaknesses, could be. It's not bad, but I would switch this part around just to kind of discuss, the way in which it is written. Since we've been talking so much about what to write, but we haven't really looked at how to write it. So take a minute, 2 minutes, just read number 1. What do you notice about number 1?
I don't like
back-to-back thing.
Yeah.
They put a period in the middle, so there's some separation.
They could have said like the Grapes of Wrath,
Yeah.
period, the book,
Or
this
the
novel.
They could have ended with in his novel, and then go the Grapes of Wrath, or in his novel The Grapes of Wrath, and then go the book or whatnot. Yeah, that's been a pretty common concern that folks have had. It's not necessarily wrong, where -1 point, -2 points, but stylistically it's a little clunky, it's a little awkward. So now there could be some cases when you do want to repeat something at the end and then something in the beginning. But generally, essays, introductions, things like this with book title, that's not going to be the time to drop in your anaplosis. How do you like that word?
Pretty good. I give it an 8 out of 10.
That's when you repeat something at the end and then begin at the beginning. What else?
I'm not sure how like the attention grabber I don't know if it like
I don't.
fits into I mean, I feel like they should have mentioned like the bank or something since it was controlling the markets into the paragraph.
I think it's a terrible attention grabber.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't mean I think marriage is terrible. I don't, but I don't think this works. Here's what I think happened. I don't know it, and I can never be able to prove it, and I can't sequester the person because, again, I don't remember. I think they went to Brainy Quote. I think they typed in Journey, Steinbeck, and that's the first one that came up, and then they said, that works for me, and they put it in. It could work, and within their spa down here, the argument, they are dealing with their travels westward, which is a journey, but I think we got something a little bit different going on. So that relationship between the attention grabber and the rest of the introduction, I think is fairly tenuous at best. And I think generally I'd probably just scrap that one and go for another. I have no problem with you using a quotation as an attention grabber. You don't have to, and I'm not complaining whatsoever, but I do feel that somewhere along the line people get into the sense where you feel like you're supposed to use a quotation as an attention grabber. You certainly don't have to. If you are going to use a quotation as an attention grabber, you better know who the speaker is, which in this case John Steinbeck, and you better know the context, like is it going to work? You don't want to be the individual who's writing the Down with Capitalism essay and you have Thomas Jefferson or George Washington, as your attention grabber. Nor do you want to be the one writing about the wonderful ideas about democracy and independence and having your attention grabber be from Lenin. It does not work, as in Vladimir, not John. So be careful. And a lot of times, I'll see attention grabbers where, they have the quote stated by this person. So, Liam, do you know who this is? No. Well, then why'd you use it? It sounded good. You want to make sure you know the context. What gives this person the credibility that you're going to use their idea? So it can be a quote, but just make sure that's it. I don't really think this one does.
This might not matter. I just don't like how they refer to the Joe family as tail. Because when I think about fairy tale almost.
Like the tail of the
I
joke?
just think I don't know, tail might not have been the best word choice.
Okay. Do you any idea what you would put in its place? I know what you mean. You don't really think of 620 pages as being here's
like a tale. I just think when it's tale nonfiction.
Plus, you don't like A Tale of Two Cities, and you're getting that reminder. Any ideas for substitute words? Dylan, did you have an idea for a substitute?
No, I was gonna mention
Substitute.
They could use struggle.
Okay.
They use it towards the end of the pieces,
the legend.
but I think it would just work well.
Okay. What else? Dylan, you had a separate.
Yeah, I just think it's strange that they say that it's a journey of migratory workers, and then they mention that it's also a tale of the Joad family, even though the Joad family are migratory workers. So I don't know why they just don't use it as a insert, I guess, such as the Joad family.
I've never heard Joad family before. You're the first. So where up here.
Yeah.
So this phrase itself, you feel that besides mentioning this, it's also going with the Joads, but since they would fall into that category, no need for that separation quite as much. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Megan, do you have?
No, I just have a synonym for tail.
What is it?
I was just gonna say the story.
Okay. Cody, do you like that one better? Cody approved.
What?
You nodded.
Oh.
Do you like story better?
Sure.
Okay, there you go. Cody approved.
Even though like the quote is pretty bad, either way they don't like explain it after they stated it. Kind of just like use the word journey from the quote instead
Uh-huh.
of explaining like what the relevance is.
Yeah, I think they're hoping that's enough to connect it, but it's not. Amanda, and then Noah will come over.
But they use journey because I feel like journey is more of a positive word. Like they want to do it, but they got kicked out and they didn't have a choice. So I feel like it should be more of a negative word.
Any ideas? Any?
But if we could just put like an adjective in front of journey.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'd say quest. Quest. I feel like you're looking for something. Now, I mean, you could argue that they kind of are on a quest to get to that promised land, but I think you are right in the sense that you feel like you're being pushed out. Exiled could be something. Did you? Pardon?
The tribe.
The trials of the yeah, that could work. Discusses the trials of the migratory workers, sure. Tribulations, all those kinds of things. The exile, a word that'll sometimes get used, and again, it happens with the allusions that tend to get made. You'll hear about the Exodus, because then you kind of get that biblical allusion taking place to also, Moses and the Jews going out of Egypt and trying to find promised land.
It seems like every sentence except for the last one, like, doesn't really seem to be building towards any stance on an argument. It's just sort of like apathetic language.
So the last sentence is okay, like in the sense that there's a purpose behind it. Yeah, and I would, and not that we're not going to get to that first part that you mentioned. I don't have a problem with the thesis statement. What's the one thing I can tell the person did? They listened to me, and it always feels good when that one listened. Crap, we got a lot of work to do to get to the thesis statement, but they knew what to do for the thesis statement, and I would say there's still hope, because I know what they're going to be doing for body paragraphs. They know what they're supposed to be doing for body paragraphs, and they do still have horrific struggle the migrants face in their travels westward. That's still a very specific argument, and they're working towards that idea of the travels, the journey, the exile, but I would agree it's kind of clunky. I mean, let's be honest, the third sentence is horrendous. The Grapes of Wrath is the tale of the Joad family and their travels west to California after they're dismissed from their farm in Oklahoma, along with short expository chapters to reveal the situation that the whole country is in during the time period. I understand what they mean, but they're insinuating that the Joad family are dismissed from their farms along with those expository chapters that were dismissed from the farms. So it's the Joads and the books going down the street. Some of you might have rather read that book, I don't know. But, it's not structured well. They mean alternating structure, but the sentence does not convey that at all. I promise, yeah, we get to you.
With migratory workers, this is kind of what Amanda said. It's like, it almost seems like they were willing to go. Like, they wanted to move, but they were forced off their farm and had no, like, I feel like migratory workers, maybe just me, it feels that way, but it feels like they're, like, their dad just got a promotion and they're moving somewhere for a new job.
Okay, and it kind of also depends on how, once they get to California, you'll hear the term like migrant workers or migratory, where they literally are kind of looking from spot to spot because we can't find it. But that's a little bit different from the trip from Oklahoma to actually get to California, which is probably what this person is going to be focusing on as well. So just making sure that, and you're really focusing on word choice, that there's unity with the phrases that you're trying to get across, that they all make sense and go well together.
I sort of noticed reading the little paragraph again that it sort of sounds very optimistic when you get to the last sentence and they're trying to show like a bullet tone.
Which I think, because there was a complaint earlier on in the day that the attitude of Steinbeck is not clear with this one, because, coming from that first prompt. And I would say horrific struggle does, I think, convey what his attitude is, that this is not a good thing. But, yeah, I think if you go back to journey having a positive connotation, or they're just traveling, the tale, that this isn't going to be something bad, those words don't all really work in harmony and continuity to get a consistent message across. They know what they want to do. And let's be honest, I think this is a situation that some, if not many, of you are kind of in. You know what you want to do, but the idea of how to set it up might still be a little bit of a foreign idea. Cody, one more thing?
Like the second to last, it said like to reveal the situation that the whole country's in. It's like it says that, but it's like really the focus is on not like the whole country, but like certain families.
Mm-hmm.
Because not the entire country was in that. Like some of them, people, there were the wealthy, there was the not wealthy. I feel like they put it in to just extend it, like really.
We're not learning about the aristocrats in New Hampshire, at any point, or the retirees in Florida kind of thing. Okay, yeah, so it's okay to go for a larger scope, but not looking at the whole entire country necessarily. Think about number 2. Take a minute or so, read number 2. What do we think about number 2?
I feel like they don't stick with like a certain theme. They go from like talking about how like people are uptight and selfish, and then the next sentence they're like, some people were sympathetic.
Okay. And I think it was, let me do uptight and selfish. And then you mentioning about the charitable and sympathetic. The 2 could work because I think it was in here yesterday where we mentioned about the truck driver at Allen May with like leaving the tip and all that kind of stuff. So not that Allen May are not Californians, but you do kind of see where there's a mix of that selfish at times and then the charitable, sympathetic, but calling attention. But I would say there's a phrase kind of in between those 2 that really makes it tough for them to connect. Any idea what I'm looking at?
Still.
No, well, still is a little bit of weird of a word choice, but
Because they like to call it.
still he also highlights the lighter side of American culture. So disapproving attitude, sympathizes unfortunate migrants, and demonizes, which some people go, hey, I like that word, yay.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Don't like that word, boo. Uptight and selfish Californians. But then he also looks at the lighter side of American culture. Pinball is taking over the nation, and it's a really fun game. Like it's almost as if, still going to your original point, there's not a total decision yet as to where are you going. The first one, we might not have liked all of the use of some of the words, but you still knew where they were going with it. The second one, at least with that line, there's still some confusion as to, okay, what is the ultimate end game as to the direction that essay is going to go with it. And so there's still some concern there. Angelina?
They don't have that intention.
Yeah, that's not there.
And it's sort of like going over everything is.
I'm sorry?
Like it sort of seems like this person's trying to over like the thesis, but then it bounces back. It's like a little thing.
Number 1, I know, listen to me. Number 2, this is the one drooling in the corner of the room in Cody's seat. Not that Cody does that, but what's ticking me off? I mean, I pretty much ran out of ink in the pen because I just circled it so many times. And then what's going on down here with the thesis?
It's kind of weird. It's kind of,
They took my spa and they mutilated it.
it's axe.
I don't even know if it's that.
It's
Illustrates would be the purpose, I guess. The argument illustrates these ideas.
That's all.
Well, which ones? Is it the charitable? Is it the lighter side? Is it the uptight Californians? Is it the unfortunate, migrants who are being demonized? What's going on? There's too much. I don't think there's a problem with their rhetorical devices, and maybe I don't think they're like trying to stick it to me, or like telling me how to write an essay, Mr. Kane. I'm doing it my way. But I think they've kind of lost sight of that focus, the direction that they're going in. I do think that if we were to do just a creative writing piece, or write something, I bet number 2 might have more natural, innate ability as a writer than number 1. Demonizes is a nice word. I think there is some good word choice. I don't think it's perfect, so far as a paragraph, obviously. But I think number 2 might show more natural talent than number 1. But I think number 1 has a better idea of what I'm supposed to do. It's just a matter of going through the process multiple times and honing those skills. Number 2, I think, is going, I'll figure it out. It'll be okay. But they're kind of lost at this point.
Also, they were historically incorrect because by the time that this book was taking place, they were almost out of the economic crisis and started World War I.
Speaking of, I'm not trying to ignore what you're saying. Speaking of being historically incorrect, forgot to mention, anyone notice anything with number 1 being historically incorrect?
I was going to say that.
1920s, yeah. They made the typo with that aspect. Now, typo or just simply did not know.
It's right after charitable.
So he also highlights the lighter side of American culture, showing how some people were charitable and sympathetic in the time of economic crisis. I mean, when he publishes it, you certainly don't have that economic crisis quite as much. My guess is, and I'm not sure because that whole American culture part gets thrown in with the lighter side, I'm assuming that they mean time of economic crisis in reference to these folks, like the migrants. So you could still have someone like Ma, who does have economic issues, crisis, but still being charitable.
Yeah.
But I think that just kind of goes to highlight where we're not sure what you mean because it hasn't clearly been stated. And if you leave it up to the interpretation of the reader, you could be in danger because we could certainly be interpreting something different than the way that you would be as the writer.
And also, there have been multiple times of economic crisis before, and it doesn't really state an exact time period. It just says a time of crisis. It's not really the biggest deal, but you don't really know when the book is.
Well, we don't have a hook. We don't really have any background, so the Dust Bowl's not getting mentioned and things of that nature. So yeah, the location, just the overall
Very
era.
general,
You think about a soapstone. We don't really know the subject. We don't really know the audience. We don't really know the occasion as to what's happening. So they're just kind of. I think it seems as if this is due tomorrow night, and I need to put it together. Or here's my rough draft. It'll be fine. I'll just keep it the same. How about the third one? Yeah.
Third one seems not to sound really
Well, give wait a little bit. So let people read it. Pardon? Yeah, like appropriately. Of the three, I do think this is the best. By no means do I think it's purposed, and I would still suggest some revisions to absolutely take place, and we'll get into that. But would say that they certainly seem to know what you're supposed to do. Now you're going strong word choice. You're also going strong word choice. Any other reactions?
But they're trying to see this. They're trying to suggest some cannibalism.
I mean, the attention grabber.
Yeah.
Yeah, human eat human world.
Are we gonna talk about like being hungry later?
Sounds like the way the darkness describes people in hard darkness.
Yeah.
Which is extremely dark.
I
Is the entire, do you remember if the entire novel was or the entire essay was like this? 'Cause this
Yeah.
reminds me of, like,
No,
it seems like
I have a guess as to who it is, but I don't remember specifically. But I have a guess. And it's not really a dark. If it is who I'm thinking it is, it's not someone whose personality you would kind of go as to, you know, they're not going to go pun crazy the way that Andy may or may not.
There's
Um,
ones on my essay.
There are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back to those.
Keep an eye out for them. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure. No. What? And he puts it in quotation marks. So he's not being literal in the sense of they were cannibals. Anyone know what phrase he's referencing? It's dog eat dog. So it's like survival of the fittest kind of whole idea. And so I get that. So I'm okay. If you don't know the phrase dog eat dog, then don't know the phrase. Yeah, you got a better chance of cannibalism, kind of going through the thoughts of someone's mind. I'm not bothered by it. I will say it grabs my attention. I'm curious to see where this is going. So in that case, it does kind of suck you in. But it's a little bit of a risk dependent upon your audience. I guess they had enough faith in me, maybe.
I started with the word tycoons.
You do? Okay.
Started funny.
I sort of lightened it up a little.
Hungry
more.
tycoons.
Like,
Power hungry, but hungry tycoons. Starved.
that part really
Yeah, there's a lot of really strong words. Dehumanized and downtrodden.
I hum while I grade essays.
A lot of D words.
That's a good
Degrading diction.
Yeah.
A lot of D.
Anyone not like the word choice? Andy, what are you thinking?
It just seemed to be like almost too prescriptive and exaggerative in some places.
It's aggressive.
It's a little. I think it's a little over the top.
Innocent
Or
children.
like loses
How would
the
you keep it up for the rest of the essay?
The words themselves, I don't think are too confusing or like too far out there so far as a thesaurus, or what does this word mean? But they're certainly not terms that necessarily everyone is going to think of, like with the festered, infected and things like that. So certainly I think people focus on these words that get used, and some of them I think are very appropriate. Starved, I think power-hungry tycoons is an appropriate phrase for the argument that they're trying to get into. Notice some other words, though, that uses quite a bit, or word that uses quite a bit.
There's one more dehumanized and
Yeah, that's the other one I wanted. Thank you.
hungry
80, and it's not just that every time the word "and" shows up, but 80 years ago, the phrase "a human eat human world" aptly described the atmosphere surrounding migrant labor in California. During the Dust Bowl era, exploitation of migrant workers festered in the west coast of America. John Steinbeck depicts this maltreatment in a shocking manner through his novel The Grapes of Wrath. Common sights of that time included destitute workers being taken advantage of by power-hungry tycoons and innocent children being starved by selfish landowners. Dehumanized farmers from the Midwest did their best to feed their families on pennies a day. Degrading diction, details, and similes throughout the novel expose the inhumane effects of the Dust Bowl on these migrant people.
I think they just try to make it sound more sophisticated. You just lose the reader.
Yeah, and I don't think the reader completely gets lost, but I think if they kept their same words, but they got rid of the and then the other word that they throw with it, to me it reads better, and I don't think it feels quite as much in your face. You still might go, you're trying to show off a little bit, and can you keep that same language up throughout the course of the essay? Because you do want to have the same voice, the same tone throughout, but I think they probably go a little overboard with it. And when you're putting in two words, like if you pick a really good word, you don't need the other two in there. And I think festered's fine, or infected is fine. I think dehumanized is fine, or downtrodden. But I don't think you need to use both of them.
What they could have done is like what you did, like take one of them and then they could use like the other words that they have in their conclusion. So then
Yeah,
they
like
could
there's
switch it up, but still keep the same.
sure there's and then body paragraphs. There might be time where it can get used. You're right. There's probably going to be opportunities for it, but you just don't need to do it all at that one point. Similar idea, yeah. So yeah, don't put all your eggs in that one basket and then, what do I do so far as words? And if we could have saved 8 words, I think, if we did the and then the adjective that was coming with it. When we do timed writing essays in class, because 40 minutes for one essay, it's the same rate as doing the 3 essays in 2 hours on the AP exam. What does everyone want at the end of the period? Let me write one more sentence. Well, if you carve out those unnecessary words, you have the time and space for that one more sentence, and you're not asking for it. You're the one getting up when the bell rings and putting the paper down and walking out with a smile on your face. Hopefully. Regardless of what you think about the word choice, they did lose 1 point with this introduction. And they want to know why. So before they got anywhere, they were down a point. And the other paragraphs were losing some points too, but this one definitely is down a point. And if you recall from that little slip of paper you got yesterday, you would know that the word being is a to be verb, so each one would lose half of a point, use 2 of them, so it would be down 1. What can this person do without blowing up their paragraph to get rid of being?
What being starved,
They could just
power hungry tycoons and some children starved as of you can just completely remove it from the sentence and still work fine.
Technically, you can't. I know what you're. Sometimes you can eliminate. Noah is running after school. Noah runs after school. You can get it to this one won't quite work. Andy, any?
Wouldn't you just be able to take the beings out and it would still be fine?
That's what he wanted to do. It. No, can't.
That's the 2 workers taking. Oh yeah, because then you change tense.
For
parallel like structure too.
common sites of that time included destitute workers being taken advantage of by power-hungry tycoons. Focus on that part. Who is doing the action? The power-hungry tycoons. Okay.
Yeah.
This is written in passive voice. And I think people still get confused as to what's passive voice, what's active voice. It has nothing to do with tense. It's still like past, present, future. Passive voice, all that means is that whoever is doing the action is getting placed at the end of the phrase or the sentence. My teeth were drilled by the dentist is passive voice. Well, how could you take my teeth were drilled by the dentist and put it in active? The dentist drilled my teeth. It's direct, good verb, it's concise, saves time. My essay was mutilated by Mr. Kane. That's a great verb, so again, it'll work. Now, I bet 90% of the time that you have to be verbs, you're probably in passive voice. So, how can you rearrange that phrase? Instead of going, common sites of that time included destitute workers being taken advantage of by power-hungry tycoons. Common sites of that time included power-hungry tycoons taking advantage of destitute workers and, since there's another selfish landowners starving innocent children. They're gone. The integrity, the original word choice is still there. The emotion is still there. Most of your to be verbs are going to be because of passive voice. Now, some you might not be able to fix, and that's when you come in, see me, and then we go over it. But a lot of the times, it's more of rearranging the sentence. It's not completely changing the sentence, or the idea. We're going to do this quickly. Paragraph on the back. It's a body paragraph. It's not from the Grapes of Wrath. I didn't want Noah taking my sample paragraph and magically, hey, he wrote a paragraph similar to it. How about that? I know you didn't. You have not read this story. It's a weird story, so the idea is going to seem a little out there, but it's okay. Bear with it. Still has to have the same components that your body paragraphs need to have, so the structure still makes sense. For example, O'Connor uses religious allusions to highlight the self-righteous behavior of some Christians and how others respond to this behavior. What can you tell about the argument of this paragraph? Like, what's the paragraph going to be about? It's rhetorical analysis. It's the same thing you do. What's the technique? What's the device that we're looking at? Religious allusions, okay? So, again, the structure of the paragraph, you can still do something similar to this. What is the argument that they're focusing on? Self-righteous behavior of some Christians and how others respond to this behavior. The family stops at a restaurant, the Tower, where the grandmother and the owner, Red Sammy, discuss the difficulty in finding good people like themselves. The Tower references the Tower of Babel, a biblical story. It's a short story. It's about 12 pages long, so don't worry about page numbers being in close proximity. It's not like a 300-page book. The Tower of Babel is built by a group of people who think they are on the same level as God, so God smites them for their arrogance. O'Connor satirizes the grandmothers and Red Sammy's hubris to demonstrate that Christians do not always think like Christians. Hubris is a word that we were talking about at that time. It means arrogance. At the restaurant, the grandmother says people are certainly not nice like they used to be. By saying this, she means that older people like herself have more values and better morals than younger generations. She has a large amount of pride, which contrasts a Christian attitude. The way the grandmother and the misfit act, the reader begins to associate the grandmother with Satan and the misfit with Jesus. This really gets weird, but it's okay. When the grandmother begs for her life, she calls out, Jesus, you've got good blood, I know you wouldn't shoot a lady. She is calling on Jesus for help, but also she could be calling the misfit Jesus. By associating the misfit with Jesus, O'Connor reflects an idea that some Christians need to be threatened in order to act like true Christians. Religious allusions satirize the ideal Christian behavior and realistic Christian behavior. Selena's already looking forward to reading what in the world's going on in this story.
Did we read this book this year?
Yeah, we probably will. They have their 3 examples which they need. Okay, so they reference one, and then they quote the other 2. Down here, and right there. Does anybody have any concerns about any of their quotes so far as the argument that they're trying to get across? Because what's the device? Religious allusions. Do they make reference to a religious allusion with the Tower on page 12? References a biblical story. Jesus, you've got good blood. I know you wouldn't shoot a lady. Religious allusion. What about this one? People are certainly not nice like they used to be. It's not an allusion. But does it help her argument about arrogant people and reinforce the reference to the Tower of Babel? Yes. This is important. Not all 3 of your quotes or examples have to have the device in it, but all 3 quotes have to help support your argument about how that device gets the argument across. So you might have 3 quotes with imagery, you might have 2, but the second one is reinforcing how that argument gets across. So kind of keep that in mind, that you can look at that sample paragraph and still see how it works together to get a main point. Have a good weekend, enjoy it. 3 days.